Have you ever sat beside your phone waiting for a message from someone who means everything to you? You tell yourself you're not waiting. You tell yourself you're busy. But every few minutes, your eyes drift back to the screen. Nothing. No message, no call, no sign that they're thinking about you. And yet, if that same person texted right now, you would answer immediately. You would drop whatever you're doing. You would make time. You always do. Because deep down, you care. Maybe too much. And that's where the problem begins. Most people believe that the more love they give, the more love they will receive. The more available they are, the more appreciated they will become. The more sacrifices they make, the more important they will be to others. But life has a cruel way of teaching a different lesson. Sometimes the more you need people, the less they value you. And if you've ever felt ignored, taken for granted, forgotten, or replaced, then you already know exactly how painful that lesson can be. The worst part isn't the rejection. The worst part is the confusion. Because you don't understand what went wrong. You were loyal. You were kind. You were supportive. You answered every call. You replied to every message. You stayed when others left. So why does it feel like the people you care about the most are the people who appreciate you the least? The answer lies deep within human psychology. And while it may be uncomfortable to hear, understanding it can completely change your relationships forever. Let's begin with a simple truth. Human beings are wired to value what feels rare, what feels uncertain, what feels difficult to lose. Think about it. When something is always available, your brain slowly stops paying attention to it. You stop noticing it. You stop appreciating it. Not because you're a bad person, but because that's how the human mind works. The things that seem permanent become invisible. And unfortunately, many people unknowingly make themselves emotionally permanent in other people's lives. They become the person who is always there, always available, always understanding, always forgiving, always waiting. At first, this seems like love. At first, it seems noble. But over time, something dangerous happens. People stop seeing your effort. They stop recognizing your sacrifices. And eventually, they begin expecting what they once appreciated. This is why some of the kindest people in the world often feel the most invisible. Because they give so much that their giving becomes normal. Think about your own life. How many times have you sent the first message? How many times have you checked in on someone? How many times have you carried a conversation that the other person barely participated in? How many times have you made excuses for someone who wouldn't do the same for you? Maybe you've told yourself they're busy. Maybe you've told yourself they have a lot going on. Maybe you've convinced yourself that if you just try a little harder, things will finally change. But they don't. And that hurts. Because every unanswered message feels like a question. Every ignored effort feels like a judgment. Every moment of silence feels personal. You begin wondering if something is wrong with you. Maybe you're not interesting enough. Maybe you're not attractive enough. Maybe you're not successful enough. Maybe you're simply not enough. But here's the truth most people never realize. The problem isn't that you're not enough. The problem is that you've allowed your self-worth to depend on someone else's attention. And the moment your self-worth depends on another person's attention, you give them power they never should have had. Now, your mood depends on their reply. Your confidence depends on their approval. Your happiness depends on their presence. Without realizing it, you've handed them control over your emotional world. And people can feel this. Not always consciously, but they can feel it. They can sense when someone needs them too much. They can sense when someone is afraid to lose them. They can sense when someone is seeking validation rather than connection. And strangely enough, this often creates exactly the opposite result that you want. Instead of bringing people closer, it pushes them away. Because confidence attracts, neediness repels. The person who constantly seeks approval unintentionally communicates something powerful. They communicate that they don't fully approve of themselves. And when that happens, people begin viewing you through the lens you've created. Imagine two people entering a room. The first person desperately wants everyone to like them. They monitor every word, every reaction, every facial expression. They're constantly adjusting themselves to gain acceptance. The second person is respectful, kind, and caring, but they don't need approval. They're comfortable being themselves. They're comfortable with disagreement. They're comfortable with rejection. Which person feels more attractive? Which person feels more confident? Which person naturally earns more respect? The answer is obvious. Because people are drawn to strength. Not physical strength, not financial strength, emotional strength. The ability to stand alone. The ability to remain valuable even when nobody's validating you. And this brings us to one of the most painful truths about relationships. The more afraid you are of losing someone, the more you likely are to lose yourself. You stop expressing your needs. You stop setting boundaries. You stop speaking honestly. You become whoever you think they want you to be. And slowly, piece by piece, you abandon yourself. Ironically, the very thing you're doing to keep the relationship alive is often the thing that's destroying it. Because healthy relationships are built on choice, not dependence. Real love says, I want you. Neediness says, I need you. And those two things are not the same. One comes from abundance, the other comes from fear. One creates connection, the other creates pressure. And nobody wants to feel responsible for another person's sense of worth. This is why people who desperately chase approval often feel exhausted. They are running a race that never ends. No amount of attention is enough. No amount of validation lasts permanently. No reassurance permanently fixes the insecurity underneath. Because the real problem was never outside of them. The real problem was inside. The belief that they needed someone else's approval in order to feel valuable. But here's the good news. The moment you stop chasing validation, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop begging for attention. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop forcing conversations. You stop convincing people to stay. And for the first time, you begin respecting yourself. You realize that your value does not increase when someone chooses you, and it does not decrease when someone leaves. You are not valuable because somebody texts you back. You are not valuable because somebody loves you. You are not valuable because somebody approves you. You are valuable because you exist. And when you finally understand that, everything changes. Because the people who are hardest to replace are not the people who need everyone. They are the people who need nobody's permission to be themselves. And that's the moment people stop taking them for granted. That's the moment they stop chasing. And that's the moment they finally become free.